26. We are going to be doing a harmonic energy update today, and we're going to get started with first two cards in our 5-card spread for today are what do we have coming through? We have here the Ace of Wands in its upright in combination with the Wheel of Fortune in its upright. Let's talk about it. Okay, those are some intense cards to be starting our reading with, but I think that it also makes a lot of sense given the fact that we're currently navigating eclipse season. And the one thing I like to describe with this eclipse season is working into the space of effectively trying to articulate or trying to effectively bring forth energetic changes within the self, within the relationship, within the context of our own energetic sense of I like. And the way I want to describe this, and this is really important because before we go forwards, we have to go backwards a little bit. And the first thing I want to articulate is understanding, and you're probably used to me saying this if you followed us, if you've been here for a moment. Eclipses, right? It's not the space by which, or my interpretation of the way I read into the energy of eclipses, is that it's not the space by which the energy changes, but it amplifies what is already there, right? It works into the context of being able to effectively see something with better clarity, right? And it's beautiful in that way, right? And this is why I want to describe that often the experience by which we work through frustration is often a moment of celebration because the space by which we're effectively able to navigate situations with clarity allow us to be able to apply practical effort towards things. And this is what and I want to describe this, right? It has a lot to do with our own ability of being able to, and we were talking about this before we got it started on the podcast, you know, our ability to effectively know ourselves, right? The space by which we know ourselves effectively fortifies us in relationality to the energy that's around us, right? Because it's the continuation of the context by which we ourselves are able to articulate our own reliability, right? And that's what's beautiful. Like, that's what's beautiful that happens when we're building into the reliability of self, right? It's the context by which we are able to articulate upon something. And not just the space by which we're able to articulate upon it, but the space by which we eagerly, right? We eagerly delight in the space by which the space by which we talk about it. And we often see this, right? Like, you often see that in the eagerness of effectively working through something, right? It's the connection point by which one feels that sense of heightened excitement, by which one is basically able to effectively build off of something. So all of this is effectively happening right now in the context of the fact that we've seen that both Saturn and Neptune have moved into Aries. Now, what's interesting about it, and we got to talk about this a little bit, there's often a misconception with Aries energy that we have to clarify. And the misconception that we often have in relationality to Aries energy is that Aries energy is volatile, right? It's the same space by which we navigate volatility, we also find exuberance lives, right? What is the difference between volatility and exuberance? It has to do with how much we effectively prioritize our own energetic innocence or our own vulnerability. When we look at our vulnerability as a precious gift, we get very, very energetically protective upon it, right? And we often see this in the journey of those who carry a lot of Aries placements, right? You'll see like Go find yourself go find yourself an Aries and talk to them about what they were like when they first arrived here, right? Like, go talk to them, right? Like, talk to them about a lot of that, like, a lot of that feeling, right? A lot of that feeling of effectively the space by which we feel like we effectively have to prove things versus the journey that happens within in terms of being able to identify and feel the value of the self, right? And that's what happens often in the context, right? And let's talk about being provocative in the best way possible, because when we've effectively worked through our own energetic frustration upon things, we effectively become provocative in the best way possible, because the provocation that we experience doesn't happen from outside the self, it happens from within, right? It's like it's not the space by which you feel the context of having to effectively prove it without, but the space by which you effectively see the self and aspire and desire to move in a greater way, right? It's a lot of that. It's kind of in the space, and I like to describe this because this is a lot of the work that we see that a lot of the energy is navigating right now in terms of working through frustration, but not in a way by which it feels like it moves one further away from something, but in the way by which one is able to channel that frustration into something that feels energetically productive. Now, this is really important, specifically and particularly because in relationality to a lot of the relationships that are effectively coming together right now, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, we see that and we're going to speak specifically towards the world relationships that are happening right now. And the reason I'm identifying them as world relationships is they're effectively working through the lessons that we identify in the world card of the tarot, right? And these are the relationships that were coming together between the time of January 18th, so that new moon in Capricorn energy in Capricorn season, which I'm sure really ground the gears to a certain extent, right? Versus into the present. And it's the observation of effectively identifying and recognizing what we ourselves, right? And this is what's beautiful about it, right? When we work through the context of being frustrated and then we energetically do something about it in a way by which we effectively flourish, right? It's the observation of allowing the frustration to move us into the context of the relationships by which we ourselves prioritize our own energetic flourishing. And this is a gift because what happens when we do that? We become energetically reliable to those around us, right? It's the space by which our frustration feels like it's a gift because we know what to do with it. We know what to do with it. Oh, what do I do with this frustration? Oh, I hate it. I'm gonna put it over here, right? It's a space by which we are effectively always able to take that frustration and use it in like the frustration that fertilizes, right? The frustration that we put into things that feel like they effectively grow into something greater. And that becomes the energetic gift to those around us. And so I see that for a lot of those relationships right now, it's working through, right, the security, the safety they feel. And this is what's beautiful about it too. When we have navigated, right? A lot of the work that we have to do in terms of working through our shadow work has a lot to do with how we effectively navigate our frustration. Because here's the thing that you have to recognize. When we're experiencing frustration, we experience it as fear, right? Like we're feeling fearful in that moment, but others don't feel the fear that we feel in our frustration. They feel, right? They feel the anxiety. They feel the uncertainty, right? And this is why when we start to heal our frustration, we become each other's anchors. We become each other's safety nets because it's not the space by which we allow the frustration to navigate us in strange directions, but the space by which we are effectively able to take that frustration and put it, right? Put it in a healthy place that allows for the expansion of partnership. And so I think that this is really interesting right now because for some reason I'm seeing that some of this energy in relationality to those connections is working through the frustration of the self, right? Working through, and I keep on getting, right? We often see this with eclipse cycles, feeling a lot of that amplification, feeling a lot of those moments by which you potentially overly, like, you those tendencies of, like, overthinking, right? Overly obsessing upon things. Like, remember, right? And this is what's beautiful. Like, remember that you're navigating eclipse season. So when you're able to effectively identify that and you don't over internalize it upon it, then you allow yourself to effectively move that into a space by which it feels like it's energetically healing. Now, for those new relationships that are coming together right now, I just keep on seeing that this feels, right? That this feels like something by which they're giving each other, right? They're giving each other the gift of alternate energetic perspectives, right? The ability to effectively identify and recognize or see something in a way that one hasn't seen it before. This is beautiful because I keep on hearing that for a lot of that energy with that Ace of Wands and the Wheel of Fortune creates, like, look at that. Like, that is powerful stuff. Those 2 cards together, right? It's like it's kind of like, it's not the World card, but it's close. It's close. Because this is like, and I wanna say, like, this is like shield, and also the ability to effectively be able to apply energetic force, and it's all about working through proportion. Now, in relationality to that, and I think that that's beautiful, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of these relationships feel like they're having this, like, stabilization point in relationality to articulating upon things in a way, and I keep on hearing the gift of these relationships is not working through the context of another person. I feel like a lot of these relationships are working on not taking things personally, but profoundly, right? The observation of the space by which the energy articulates heavily upon the past that allows the space by which one feels energetically stabilized in terms of what one is effectively able to identify or articulate. Now, we're going to move into, from that point, talking about these moon partnerships. Now, the moon partnerships were effectively the relationships that were coming together between the time of that double Capricorn moon is what I keep on calling it, because it was a new moon in Capricorn up until the time that Uranus initially stationed retrograde, which was around September. Center card for today's spread is the Magician card. This is like a very, I want to describe this right now. This is a very intense first row of cards. Okay. It's like, it's coming in hot. So we've got a lot of this magician energy, and I want to describe this. These moon relationships. Let me just walk you through what we were seeing there. Remember when I said that these moon relationships, never before, right? Never before have they been in experiences or circumstances or situations by which I keep on seeing, there's never been a modality by which their purpose, they have a lot of trauma. And I keep on seeing the trauma that they're bringing into partnership was the anxiety of the feeling that their purpose damages partnership, right? They've got a lot of trauma on that because, and I want to describe this. This is potentially why this energy works into the space by which they sometimes are very energetically resistant to come into partnership, because everything that I'm effectively seeing there has to do with the fact that they have shared trauma wounds in relationality to trying to do nothing but focus on your purpose, right? You could be minding your own business, just trying to focus on your purpose. But when you're not in a relationship that prioritizes purpose, right? Then often the space by which another person takes that purpose personally can create the wound, right? They can create the wound in relationality to another person articulating that they don't feel like they're prioritizing properly. And this is why I feel like this is a very emotional time for some of the individuals in those relationships, because the ability to have found a relationship by which not only are they moving towards their purpose, but they're building into the context of their purpose with someone who holds their purpose as preciously as they do, right? There's a lot of this energy that I feel like is they're finding even more energy to put towards things because they're moving towards their purpose. And then they're feeling very passionate about their connection that allows them to move towards their purpose. So then they feel more passionate, and then that passion that they channel into their purpose, and then they've got all this passion. And where does the passion go? It goes back into the relationship that allows one to be able to focus on one's purpose more. So it's like it's the energy it's that Aries energy. It's that Aries energy kicking in, right? Like that's a lot of that. There's a lot of that potential expansion that's happening. But I keep on hearing a lot of that expansion has to do with it's like the energy being like, I don't know where to put all I don't know where to put all this. Now continuing to get clarified, but also potentially having a lot of feelings coming up in relationality to past experiences by which they themselves felt energetically frustrated in relationality to working through they're able to see the trauma in the past like they've never seen it before. And there's a lot of emotionality there, but I feel like a lot of it I feel like a lot of that emotionality is being healed even as quickly as it's coming up. It's like there's that Aries energy being like, it's like, and it's gone. Now continuing to get move deeper right now. We're going to get into those temperance relationships. And it's interesting too, because I actually got bottom of the deck here and I'm actually holding the deck in a way that I can see this card. This is the next card. So this one's coming from the bottom and this one's coming from the center. Ooh, look at that. I want to describe I want to describe what we're seeing right now with these temperance relationships. Now, remembering that the temperance relationships were the partnerships that were coming together when we were working on the lessons that we find in the temperance card. So that was effectively between the time of, I want to describe it as the time that Uranus first stationed direct. So that was around September 6th, up until the solstice period that we had over the summer. Now, let's walk through what we're seeing here. This energy, right? This energy works very heavily into the context of the amplification of recognizing the stabilization point of everything is possible so long as the work is mutual, right? There's a lot of that mutuality that we're effectively seeing there. And I want to describe that for a lot of those temperance relationships, this is potentially feeling like a vulnerable time. Now, why do we see that for some of those temperance energies right now, it feels much more like library energy is the best way I can describe it. There's more of a solemnity there. And why are we effectively seeing that? And I want to describe it too. Like there's a little bit of this energy that feels um and I want to like the way how do I describe this best? Um working through the space of taking I need to describe this is what I appreciate about these temperance relationships. The ability to take a soft approach to things during eclipse cycles is an absolute gift. Like, and we're gonna get that's for like that is that you want to talk about like the identification. It's feeling that like the space by which we work through our own space of energetic refinement is often the space by which we effectively identify or we work into. And I keep on hearing perfect is not found, it's created, right? And when we identify ourselves, you want to know how you heal from a wound of perfection. You say to yourself, I am a perfect maker, right? And what do we say that? Why do we say that? Because when you're healing from a wound of perfection, what you're really doing is you're condemning yourself, right? You're looking around the self constantly being like, everything is better, right? But that's an illusion because everybody feels like that. Okay. Like everybody, like that person that you think is perfect, they are feeling like that too, right? Like it's the observation. And so when you're going through the observation that you're feeling the frustration of not being perfect, and then you just realign yourself and go, I am a perfect maker, right? I am a perfect maker. I am not here to seek perfection. I am here to create perfection. Ooh, that hits different. That hits differently, doesn't it? That hits a little, that hits a little bit differently, doesn't it? And it's that work that we effectively recognize, right? And I feel like that's what we're effectively seeing that is happening right now. But it's hard. It's hard for these temperance energies, a lot of trauma potentially around. Like if I'm saying the word perfect and those energies in deep in temperance relationships wins, right? Like I feel like this is a lot of the energy that is working through, right? They're working through healing wounds of perfection, potentially, and again with counterpart, right? The counterpart that almost says to another person gently, I love you because things become perfect in your hands because you know what to do with them, right? Like that's what's so like that. What is love? What is love if not that? Right? What is love if not that? The ability of seeing something and being able to say, right? Being able to be careful, right? To be careful. Like we're very careful when we do that because we navigate our love gently, right? And so there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of temperness, there's a lot of it's interesting, I was trying to say tenderness. I was trying to say tenderness, but temperance like, the word temperance was, like, flying out of my mouth because it's the tenderness that allows us to build into our love of temperance, right? Because I need to point out, temperance, we've forgotten what temperance means, right? Temperance is when you're working on something very delicate and you're like, it needs to be, you got to hit just the right temperature because if not, it's not gonna go the way you want it to go, right? So it's understanding, right? It's being able to navigate something with a sense of care and delicacy. And you can't fake. Here's the thing about it: you can't fake temperance. You can't fake temperance. You gotta really love something to be able to be like, and then that's where you see it's like the Aries energy. No, you gotta turn it just the right way, right? So you gotta like, it's those little things that we know about each other that build into the space of saying, "I've spent an infinity caring about this," right? I can and I understand the energetic nuance of something. So we see that there's a lot of that type of energy here. I told you. That's because the eclipse is way over there. It's way over there. All right. Now let's continue right now. We're going to continue right now, and we're going to be moving back into the blah, blah, blah. We're moving back into those world relationships. So the energy and solitude right now. Clarification between the Wheel of Fortune in its upright and the Ace of Wands in its upright. One card to clarify. There's that King of Wands. Let's talk about this here. Like, let's talk, like, the thing with the King of Wands and its reversal, and I want to describe this. And this is what I effectively see is happening for a lot of that energy, right? A lot of that energy that is effectively I keep wondering a lot of that energy that is effectively working through something. And the one thing I keep on seeing with a lot of the energy that is in solitude right now is it says to me it is the amplification of not being like and this is when there's a lot of inner child healing that's happening right now for energy that is in solitude. And I need to stress this. And we're going to, you've heard me say this before. Inner child healing has nothing, it's not about the person that you were when you were a child. It's the person that you were when you thought you knew everything, right? We all have those moments. Like that is literally what we talk about with maturing. The problem, and that's the hard part about being immature, right? What is the first thing? What is the first sound you hear? Right? What is the first sound you hear from immature energy? I'm ready. Like, they were in fact not ready. Right? It's like it's when you approach things with the recognition of understanding, right? Like, I wanna describe this, like, it's funny, and the reason I'm laughing about it is because some of this energy coming into relationship right now is I keep on hearing unsteady is still ready, is what I keep on getting, and the reason I keep on hearing unsteady is still ready because these are relationships that are not coming to each other with bravado, right? They're not coming to each other with bravado. They're not like it's not cool energy. It's a lot of that energy that's worked into the space of I keep on seeing, like, they know themselves very well, and even in the space by which they articulate, right? Yeah, I feel like there's something about it here that almost describes it sounds it's like I wanna say, like, the energy is, trying to come like, I feel like I almost see the energy trying to get better about the way that they speak about themselves, is what I keep on seeing, because a lot of that force that we see there and you see how, like, as soon as I started reading for it, like, I had to clear my throat, um, it says to me that, like, the energy is effectively working through something in such a way that, they often I feel like it's the like, the way, like and it's interesting too, because it has to do with the space by which we come to know one another, right? It's always clumsy, right? And I like this as well, and I like to I read like, I often talk about this. There's, like, and this is why, and this is where I argue with people. This is why I always associate Fool energy to Aries, right? Because it's not the space by which we feel energetically foolish, but it's like the modality by which our eagerness, right, is endearing, right? It's often those moments that we feel like we're stumbling over ourselves. But even in the space by which we stumble over ourselves, it articulates the care by which we bring to things, right? And so I see that for a lot of the energy effectively working through experiences like that, I keep wondering, they're coming to care for the part of themselves that dare, right? And that's how you heal that. You come to care for the part that dares. Because and that's a hard part about it, right? The part and I want to describe this. This is the healthy ego, right? The healthy ego does not create the space by which you have to say to the self, right? Like, I'm ready. Like something you punch yourself up. Like you have to like get yourself like, but you say, I hold the part of the self that dares with love because that's a scary place, right? Like the energy of trying, right? The energy of trying is painful because you never know what you energetically can find there. But this is why when we hold that part of ourselves with compassion, then we look at situations and we don't feel upset, right? We don't feel upset when we discover things there that we're not expecting, right? Because it's like the care that we bring to the part that dares that allows us to kind of move into the space by which we can dare carefully. Is what I keep on hearing. It's like we can dare carefully, which is a lot of that, like, if I may be so bold kind of energy. There's like it's very courteous. It's very courteous in that energy right now. But I'm not surprised to see that because what do we have? What do we have that just moved into Aries? We got Saturn. We got Saturn. We got Saturn and Neptune, like, shaking hands, like, "Okay," right? Emotions, like, strength. This is how we can merge these in a way that feels beautiful, right? We hold the space of dare with a sense of compassion. Now continuing, moving back into those moon relationships, what is going on in them moon relationships right now, my friends? Like, the Ace of Wands, this magician stuff. What can I get one card to clarify, please? Oh my goodness. Ace of Cups, that's so much like, Ace of Cups energy, and, here's the thing about it, um, there is and I wanna describe this, and this is what I keep on and this is, like, again, when we talk about, right, a relationship won't fix anything. The right relationship will fix everything. And why do we, and this is what we have to identify, but, and I got to talk about this because this is what this energy is understanding. Okay. It's the observation of understanding that the quality of a relationship is not the space by which what we aspire for it to become, but what we energetically find is there. And it doesn't mean that there isn't work that we apply to things, right? We recognize that when we're building into a healthy relationship, the first place that the work goes is this way. And that doesn't mean that there isn't work outside of relationship that we have to navigate, right? That doesn't mean, and this is often what you see, like when you start building unstable relationships, you'll have unstable relationships by which another person is like, everything is fine, right? And there's a person going, everything is fine. And there you see another person that's withering, that's like holding on to a lot of energetic resentment in the space by which another person is feeling that fineness. Or the modality by which like energy is so worried, right? So worried about rocking the boat that the boat doesn't go anywhere, right? So the modality by which we work, right? And this is what I keep on seeing with this, like this moon energy, right? Like Ace of Wands with Ace of Cups. This is like the energy of articulating about recognizing that the journey that we find in balance, right? The journey that we find in balance is proportional to holding, right? Holding our own purpose, but then also holding the purpose of counterpart with equal dexterity, right? And it doesn't mean that we're energetically perfect. We're not, we're far from it, right? But that ability of effectively recognizing and understanding that is often the space, and we'll talk about this, right? We don't we don't we don't look at relationships and say to ourselves, like, why am I not energetically centered in it? But the ability by which we find the stability within the self that allows us to effectively feel the stability of the relationship, by which we don't necessarily need to constantly energetically concentrate upon it. I told you, this eclipse is not something that can be seen. Okay. And that's what I told you. These relationships are building into finding a relationship by which they found the firmament, right? And the relationship that feels like it provides the firmament is the space by which they feel like the relationship is one by which they see each other moving towards their purpose, right? And they feel that vibration of energetic delight. They feel that modality of centering, right? Without having to focus entirely upon it, right? It's very hard to describe. Okay, it's very hard to describe. I hope I'm doing my best in describing it. Those who are experiencing it are probably going like this. Okay. But that's why I keep on seeing that this energy is kind of going like we, because it feels like they can move towards their purpose with more alacrity or with more speed. Now, continuing to get clarification, and we're moving right now towards those temperance relationships, and this is where I feel like a lot of this vulnerability is coming from. One card to clarify, and that's the Three of Wands in its reversal. So let's talk a little bit about this Three of Wands and its reversal energy. The temperance relate do you see, like, very different energy right now. And the way I want to describe it is the energy working through this right now. It's very it's there's a lot of refinement here, right? We've got a Virgo full moon coming up, and I feel like a lot of this energy is already kind of like they're already in that type of vibration, right? And I keep on getting, it's the beauty, right? It's the energetic beauty of working through something. And I love this about each other, because this is the energy that cares about one another so much, that they're able to articulate and define upon nuance, right? They're taking they're taking nuanced approaches to things. And what's beautiful about that, and again, right, we see in a lot of those the energy in solitude right now, the energy that says learning to care for the part that dares, right? This is the energy that is effectively like working like working upon things quietly, right? It's the space by which they're potentially working to energetically perfect something. And I keep on getting like they're deep within temperance because it's understanding. And I love teaching upon the temperance card for this reason, because I often feel I often feel like the temperance card is misinterpreted, right? Temperance, even in the card itself, you see somebody taking the temperature, right? Like you think that foot is standing on the water. Is the foot standing on the water, or is it dipping a toe in the water? Right? The care that we bring as it relates to effectively being energetically attentive and sensitive, right? The attentiveness and the sensitivity that we bring to things is an amplification on our force of care. And it's something that is quiet, right? It's something that is often something that is often um unseen in the space by which others or don't like others who don't realize it, don't recognize or identify it. But the gift that we bring to situations by being able to effectively recognize or understand, right, what is energetically needed, or how we can effectively improve something. It's often hard, right? Because sometimes when you get into some of that minute work, you get really frustrated, right? It gets harder because it sometimes feels like you want to energetically give up on things, right? There's all that frustration that gets in the way of perfection. But when we find that ability to effectively like refine something, right, then we're effectively tempering it, right? Because we have to temper ourselves. We have to have the control of our temper in order to temper, right? We have to have control. The only way you can temper is if you have control of your own temperament. Like that's what's beautiful about it. It's like it's a lot of that work. So it's beautiful because it talks about the beauty of doing something minute that helps us with our own temper, because it allows the space by which we feel all the things we feel, and then we don't let it get in the way. We're able to effectively like pinpoint it better, right? We often learn, but this is going to be coming up, but and I got to tell you, this is like the power of like a Pisces, a Virgo moon in Pisces season is like that. It's like everything moving and you're like now, and I feel like that's why that energy is working upon something. But I keep on hearing they're working upon something in the space by which they themselves are trying to articulate how much they feel about it, because they understand they understand why it means so much, right? There's a lot of that there's a lot of that emotionality there. Now, continuing to get clarification, moving back into the energy in solitude right now. Clarification between that Knight of Cups and the Three of Pentacles in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. We've got the the Seven of Cups in its upright. Now, let's talk a little bit about and every time I start reading for the energy in solitude, there goes that throat chakra. And like the like I want to describe this because it has to do, right? It has to do with us. I feel like there's something really important that's happening right now as it relates to our it's I feel like there's a there it goes again. There's a recontextualization as it relates to finesse that we see that's potentially happening. And what's beautiful about that is um when another there it goes. Hold on a minute. And like this is what I mean too. Like when we get energetically excited to talk about something, it's often hard to talk about it. You ever notice that? Right? Like it's like you're like, "Ooh, I finally get to talk about why can't I talk about it?" Right? It often works into the space by which like the space by which we ourselves often get frustrated, right? Because in the moment by which we feel that space by which we talk about something, we always get mad at ourselves that we don't feel like we communicated, like we don't feel like we've communicated the full gravitas of something. But this is what's beautiful about it, right? Because often And this is what's beautiful is like there's something about the beauty. Like there's something beautiful upon the energy in solitude that recognizes that when we care, like when we see or identify something, it's the ability of being able to, I keep on getting, understand and recognize each other's well, right? And what do I mean by well, right? It's the observation, and especially when we come into new relationship, right? We don't know each other's wells, right? We don't navigate them the way that we anticipate. We don't know what to energetically expect there. And through conversation, right, we clarify upon each other's well, right? It's the space by which we bring clarity through conversation. And so when we understand this, right, then we become very eager to effectively continue conversations because it's the space by which we effectively identify and recognize the space of desiring to move deeper into energetic connection upon things. And this is why, and I want to point this out, this is why I see a lot of the energy in solitude, healing, right? Healing from the traumatics, like the trauma of past connection by which they felt like they were in energetic separation, because I see a lot of that energy that is taking, right, a very compassionate approach to how they're navigating healthy relationship, right? This is the energy that almost articulates and says, better, right, a healthy relationship. And this is why we talk about the fact by which you can say there's nothing more damaging on this earth than saying, I need a relationship. Because like any relationship will do, and being like, no, like, no, it doesn't work like that, right? Because the space by which we understand a healthy manifestation is being able to understand our why. You want to move into a healthy manifestation, answer the why first, right? Don't be like, I need that. Be like, but why is it important to you, right? What does that signify? What does that articulate? Because when we effectively understand our why, we start to become more centered. We start to understand. And that doesn't mean, right? It doesn't mean that something that we aspire for is unnecessary, right? It's understanding the reason by which we feel connected to it. And when we understand and this is what's interesting about it, everyone has a different why that they bring to relationship, right? And it's not to say, right, everybody's whys in a certain way, everybody's whys are okay, so long as we are energetically clear upon what that why is, which is why which is why sorry, which is why it's really important. And this is what's happens when you move towards a relationship. The first thing you need to talk about is like what that signifies. And often you'll notice what happens when you try to bring the significance of the relationship to a relationship that's not looking for any significance, right? Just looking for something, right? Someone will immediately reject you. They'll be like, "Oh," and they'll be like, "You're one of them." Right? Like, and you'll probably hear that, right? They'll utilize the ubiquitous they, right? Like, "Oh, look, the ubiquitous they," because it's the space by which another person isn't putting a lot of thought into things, right? It's the amplification of understanding that we bring our importance with us as it relates to manifestations, because often when someone doesn't have a healthy manifestation, they're not that inclined in talking about it, are they? A healthy manifestation is one that's mutually shared. So the best thing you can bring to new relationship is conversation. And the modality by which another person understands the significance of it fortifies upon the fact that you're moving towards it with that same space of healthy, right? Healthy maturity and dexterity. So I feel like that's a lot, like that is and what do we see that's potentially happening right now for a lot of the energy in solitude, right? Coming into the space by which they're learning to care for the part of the self that dares, right? So that is healing the egoic self, while simultaneously, like, working into the space of navigating the discomfiture of being able to talk about why they prioritize relationship as they're moving towards one, to help them fortify, and the conversation of relationship that acts as shield to effectively find the space by which another person is invested in another's well. I hope that makes sense. Now continuing to get clarification. Moving into those moon relationships, clarification between our King of Wands and its reversal and that Ace of Cups energy. Can I get one card to clarify, please? Clarification coming through right now with our Two of Wands. That's a lot of a lot of wand energy. Reading for the moon relationships right now. Just wands everywhere. Wands everywhere. There's wands. But I want to describe. But this is why. Like, and I feel like that's the thing about it, though. Like, I feel like a lot of those moon relationships right now are experiencing something that feels like an energetic green light. And the reason I'm identifying it as a green light is because, like, look at this. Like, I just want to show you what I'm seeing in these cards. These are the relationships by which they've had, like, this is the energy that carries their purpose. Like, this is like, I feel like this energy, like, look at this energy before they found partnership. They're like, here I come with my purpose that another person is going to say that they love until they don't love it because they see what it means to actually be in the space of having to fulfill it. Right. And so this is a lot of the energy that often, like, this is the energy going, me and my purpose. Like, it's working through the space by which they've often felt like they've had to leave relationships by which the purpose was identified as shadow. And that's really painful. Right? Because this is almost the energy I can almost hear the energy saying, I articulated that this was I feel like this is the energy that tried to say to another in the past, saying, I did nothing but try to articulate to another person, right? Like that is the shape and nature of their own, like, their own direction. But this is often what happens because when we're not in a space by which we are truly able to energetically embrace the things that we find, right? The healthy relationship will change you in profound ways, right? I feel like a lot of those relationships have felt like their purpose has been like a weight on their back, right? Because I keep on hearing like they've had to go places that, with their purpose that they would never aspired to go, but which they felt that they had to in order to protect it. So being able to find a relationship, do you see what's happening right now for some of these moon partnerships? To finally be in a relationship by which another person, and I need to point this out, doesn't mean that they have the same purpose, but someone who has a sense of purpose in the same way. They've gone through the same experience, right? What are they saying to each other? They're saying go, right? And it's beautiful because they're healing their relationship to the word go, right? The go by which they've often experienced, the space by which another person has said to them. I keep on hearing the trauma of someone saying, then go, right? The anger, right? The anger of another person that says, go fill your purpose, right? The hostility or the energetic rage, having to heal from a situation by which another person felt that they weren't being centered in the space of that, by having an energy that says go, right? Like go, but like go that becomes a gift, right? Go that feels like it's energetically healing, that allows them to effectively continue forward into their purpose in ways that they have not dreamt possible before. So I feel like that's a lot, but there's a lot of emotions that may be coming up as they continue through that work. Now, this brings us to the energy that is deep within divine union. Clarification between that Ace of Cups and the Three of Wands in its reversal. Man, it's completely different in there. Hold on. One card to clarify. We got that Devil card. No. It's like, but let's talk about this right now because and I want to just like especially like give these things here, right? The Magician card with this Devil card in combination in the center of the spread. And let's talk about this, right? And we've spoken about this before. We become energetically invested with ourselves because we know what lives there, right? The modality by which, and this is why, like, again, and you'll notice this, like energy that is not invested in doing the work of the self will often try to say to someone, you're self-obsessed, as if that was a bad thing, right? as if as if that was a bad thing, because the thing you have to understand that self-possession and self-obsession are different things, right? And so this is what I see that a lot of the temperance energy recognizes, that self-possessed energy will often see somebody very invested in understanding themselves so as not to hurt energy around them. And what will they say? You're self-obsessed, right? That's interesting, right? It's almost like a mirror. It's almost there goes somebody, like, "Oh, look, there goes somebody who works really hard in understanding all the nuances of the self," because the only way we don't hurt each other is if we understand ourselves. And that doesn't mean that we're not perfect. Even when you're gonna do your best to understand yourself, and you're still gonna accidentally hurt others along the way, right? But the modality by which we effectively work to understand what lives within us is how all of it becomes energetically blessed, right? And it doesn't mean that it's perfect, but we take ownership of it, right? We effectively claim it for we understand it, right? And the space by which we effectively talk about something is the space by which we effectively are able to amplify and recognize what it energetically signifies to us, right? How we energetically feel upon the meaning of it. And so this is a lot of the energy. I feel like this is a lot of energy that is healing from wounds by which another person made them feel like they lost confidence in themselves. Because as they were trying to heal, right? What did they hear all around them? You're self-obsessed, you're self-obsessed, right? Because that's what trauma will say as you're trying to heal, right? Like as you're trying to heal, and again, if you're not if it's not hurting anybody, right? If it's not the space by which it's not hurting anybody, then it shouldn't effectively be something that effectively others care for. But the space by which another person projects, right? Projection is powerful stuff. And the hard part is when someone isn't in the space by which they're confronting their own shadow, right? When they're not in the space of facing it, where do they see the shadow? The shadow is here, it's there, it's everywhere. It's kind of amazing, right? You're not confronting the self, and all of a sudden you just see shadows everywhere. Because this is a continuation of the understanding of the lessons of Aquarius that say to us, when you don't face something, when you disassociate, there is nothing more dangerous because you put it into the unconscious, and the unconscious is our cloud. It conducts our environment, right? Okay, congratulations. You didn't want to face that bad thing. And now you see that bad part of the self. Now you see that bad part of the self everywhere. Everywhere you turn, you see it, right? Because you have to understand when the universe is a very gentle teacher, right? It wants us to effectively understand ourselves greater. So the modality by which we effectively work upon things is the space by which we ourselves are able to define upon what it is that we're doing in a greater fashion. And it doesn't mean that we're perfect, right? Far from it. But we own our imperfection. We hold our imperfection in both hands and say, this is mine, right? And when we understand our imperfection, nobody else, right? A wild thing happens. Nobody else can tell us what our imperfection is. But you'd be surprised because that's all trauma wants to do. Trauma wants to What does trauma want to do? Trauma wants to take like the imperfection of the self that one does not want to take claim for and try to displace it on others. So I see that this is a lot of the energy that is working upon finding their confidence to be vulnerable again. But it's hard because I feel like a lot of that energy has experienced wounds by which another person took their vulnerability and tried to ruin, right? Tried to ruin instead of hold it gently. So I just keep on seeing that for a lot of the energy working through wounds like that, it's painful, right? And I almost see the energy, like I keep on hearing, like it almost works into the space by which the energy recognizes and identifies circumstances or experiences by which, like, I can see them being like why does, like, them almost having a conversation and saying what's happened between you and them, and you're like, a healing journey? You know what I mean? Like, and it's hard, right? Because that's the energy that effectively tried to move through things and doing the best that they could to bring positive intention. But in unhealthy environments, positive intention doesn't create this positivity point, right? And that's what's painful about trauma. You can't ever put healthy intention into a painful space. This is what temperance energy understands. What does temperance teach us? Everything is possible. Anything is possible. Literally anything is possible, but the work must be mutual, right? If not, the work becomes in healing because becomes not putting intention in impossible places, because that's often what we have a tendency of doing when we're empathic and we're dealing with a trauma environment, right? So it articulates upon recognizing how others receive the positive force of change. continuing to get clarification. And there's a lot of catharsis is potentially rising up in relationality to experiences of that nature. Now, moving back into the energy that is in solitude right now, those world relationships, clarification between our Three of Wands in its reversal in combination with the Four of Cups in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with the Queen of Wands in its upright. So let's talk a little bit about the Queen of Wands. And I want to describe something here. And it's really important in relationality to navigating into the energy that is in solitude. And it has to do with the observation of recognizing and identifying healthy counterpart energy, right? There is the space that we work through, right? There is the space that we work through in relationality to understanding that there are things that can profoundly change, right? We've all gone through those experiences, but we have to be able to navigate the changes that we desire within, because what happens, right? We can never force change on one another. There is nothing more dangerous. There is absolutely nothing more dangerous on this earth than trying to force changes upon one another, because, right, there's no healing in a forced place. Okay? There is no healing in a forced place. The modality by which we understand there is no healing in a forced place, then it recognizes that when we go to change things, we look, right? We look towards the understanding as to whether another is eager towards changing in the same way. And this is what happens when we build into healthy relationships. You have to recognize that as you're moving towards healthy relationship, the ability to confront what wasn't working, right? It's always energetically proportional. And that isn't to say, right? This isn't to say that some of the energy that we see that's coming into partnership right now hasn't navigated has worked through trauma that one cannot control. But I think that's very interesting because I see the energy being very proportionate in relationality to their own responsibility of navigating trauma. And that's the problem about it, right? Trauma often likes to articulate that it's all one's fault, right? That's what trauma says. It's all your fault. Right? That's what projection goes. Projection goes, it's all your fault. Like, look what you did, right? Like that's a lot of that projection. But and it's hard, right? Because you at first you want to say like it's not, but then you say, but it is. Right? Because it's the observation of being able to understand that when we're trying to do something better, we can always take something from an experience, but it doesn't make it okay. Right? And that's what we often see that is painful, because trauma forces us. It's interesting. And this is what's wild about trauma. Trauma forces us to learn lessons, but it's never the lessons that the trauma is trying to impress. Like that's what happens. Trauma is always forcing us to learn lessons, and the lessons that we take from trauma are never the lessons that the trauma is trying to impress. It's never that. It never works in that way. And so this is why I see that even in those modalities, right? This is the energy that's being proportionate in relationality to recognizing what they could heal in past situations versus the conditions by which they felt were being impressed around them that was making something not possible, right? Like I see a lot of this energy in solitude being like, who can work under these conditions, right? Like, and that's what it feels like. Like that's what it feels like in a trauma environment, right? It's a space by which you can't work under those conditions, and then someone tries to blame you for not being able to function. But that's the nature of the trauma, that is effectively not recognizing the fact that when we care about things, we don't try to pull things out of things. We try to energetically nourish them to move into the space by which they hope to grow and thrive. So I see that this is a lot of the energy that is almost, I feel like they're taking trauma-informed approaches to new relationship. And that's not the space by which they're trying to traumatize each other, but the space by which they're articulating to each other the past that they experienced in order to be able to facilitate creating something better between them. Now, continuing to get clarification, moving into those moon relationships. A lot of potential trauma that is coming up at this time. Clarification between the Two of Wands with the Devil card in its upright. We've got here the Judgment card in its upright. So let's talk a little bit about this judgment energy. For a lot of these moon relationships, welcome to healthy relationship. Oh my gosh, here's all this trauma that I didn't know I was carrying, right? Like that's the hard part with the best relationship, and that's why I keep on getting like, the space we have to understand, right? That the healthiest relationship you ever feel will make you feel things that you've never felt before. Some of them will be positive, some of them will be negative because you'll be able to see things in the past that you couldn't see before, right? It's the observation of being able to effectively identify and recognize that allows one to be able to effectively heal it. And I keep on getting a lot of that insight, right? A lot of that insight potentially arriving as it relates to what they could have potentially righted in past relationship versus what they couldn't. And so a lot of that clarification, I keep on hearing it's coming up and it's being dissipated in the same vibration, right? Up and then gone, because they're feeling very grounded in relationality to being in a relationship that helps them recognize those insights, because it's the observation of not being somewhere that helps you see something with more clarity, right? It's not the observation of being able, like, this is what I meant about this eclipse giving us the gift of being able to see things with proximity. And the space by which you can see something with proximity is often the space by which you're able to identify something with more clarity that you yourself experience because you're no longer experiencing it, right? And this is the energy that's like looking at something, feeling shocked by the observation, and then feeling the relief in the fact that they can observe it because they're not within it. So for a lot of that, it's feeling very scorpionic in that way because it feels like it's coming up and then it's immediately dissipating, and it's coming up and it's immediately dissipating again. But it's still a lot of, like, I keep on getting a lot of processing. Now, for the energy that's deep within divine union, those temperance relationships, clarification between the Devil card and the Queen of Wands in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification. Ooh, two cards. We got two cards. Okay. This is Pisces. It's Pisces season. We got extra cards. We've got here the Hangman in its reversal with the Strength card in its reversal. And so what are we identifying? What are we identifying with that Hangman in its reversal with the Strength card in its reversal? It feels a lot. Um it's like I keep on getting nuance, nuance. And the thing about it, like everything I just keep on hearing is nuance. And the reason it has to do with the observation in, and this was coming through before I even started the reading. The observation of understanding something without the context. There's nothing more dangerous than trying to understand something without context, because it's like the misinterpretation comes from a lack of context. And we often notice this, right? Like it's the observation of seeing something and then not understanding it. So what happens when you see something that you don't understand? You put the wrong context to it, right? And so when we're working through that, and this is often what we work through as it relates to navigating like modalities of maturation, the observation of being able to effectively leave ourselves, like when you're approaching understanding, always approach it with a sense of awe, right? And I think it's interesting too, because I keep on hearing like the awe that we work through is more like awe. Like it's like it's often the space by which we put import on things that weren't necessarily as important, right? It's the observation, and we often see this, right? Like, what do you often navigate when you're going through a maturation process, right? This is what we do with the inner child healing. Like, we look back on the past self, and you're like, oh, look at them go. Look at that little guy go. Look at that little guy go, prioritizing something that is like so not important. Oh my gosh, look at them. Oh, yep, now they're up there. Now, yeah, I remember. No, it was really important to them. No, I remember. Right? It was really important. But it's often it's understanding. right? It's understanding that the journey that we go through is often the space by which we understand, like, and this is why we hold ourselves in the present gently, because it allows us to navigate the energetic import that we're feeling upon things. And I feel like there's something really beautiful about this energy, the temperance relationships, because even as they're going through something, they're looking upon it in the way that one would look at a memory, right? Like, it's almost a space by which another person says, like, look at us worrying about something that we will eventually get through, right? And the modality by which we hold that with a sense of care is how we build into the context of the present, right? Because the present, and this is why we talk about the beauty of the present being a gift, right? Because all we have is this energetic moment, right? There's the past, there's a future that we worry upon constantly, and there's the past that we look upon ridiculously, right? Like, and there we are in between those things, and we're doing the best that we possibly can, right? So, and I feel like that is the modality by which this energy, and that's why I keep on seeing that they navigate situations right now where they're feeling that sense of solemnitude, right? Because it's the solemnity that we often recognize, that looks at every, like, when you look at every opportunity as a moment to make something better, how does that affect the way you perceive things, right? If you look at it as every opportunity the universe is offering you and saying, how would you address this? What do you think would be a better way of navigating this? Then we don't look at frustration as saying, why is this happening? But we become the answer to our why. We answer the call of the why, right? It's a space away which you say, why? And then we say, because I am here, right? I'm here in this moment, and not working into the perseveration as to what is occurring, but how we can effectively navigate through it as best as we possibly can. So I feel like that's a lot of the energy that works into that modality of consideration. And it's the beauty, right? The beauty of love that we hold to each of us, right? The space by which we hold each other preciously is often the love that we feel is expressed in our actions, right? Like, look at the, like, think about the person you love best. And I guarantee you'll say, look at that person, right? Constantly trying to put that love into the world, right? Constantly looking at the world and articulating and saying, how can I make this better? How can I bring more beauty there? Right? So the modality by which we work into that is the space by which we build into, right? And this is where we work into the space by which the love feels like it's an honor to experience one another, because it is the amplification of the force of care that we bring to things that allow us to effectively recognize that we are the force of change that we hope to find in circumstances, right? And when you start to think about that, you don't get mad, right? You don't look at the world around you and say, like, you don't demand, but you effectively arrive to the situations. So I feel like that's a lot of the energy that works into that capacity. But even in the space by which they do that, they're saying to each other, hold yourself gently, right? Hold yourself gently, because there's only so much that one can do, because the temperance energies understand everything is possible so long as the work is mutual. So continue to effectively dare forth and look for those who energetically appreciate that, because it's the space by which we arrive to the healthy connection by which we feel that we hold each other in that space of mutual honor. Final card for today's spread, between the Judgment card in its upright in combination with the Strength card in its reversal and the Hangman in its reversal. There's some heavy cards there. Okay, there's a lot of major arcana. It's eclipse season. We're gonna be ending. We got three major arcana there, and we're just gonna drop one card. It'll be fine. It's gonna be fine. One card. Okay, it's fine. What card we got here? What is it? What is it? You tell me. Okay, it's five. It's a five. Okay, it's good. It's a five. It's a five of wands. The five of swords in its reversal. But that's what I mean too, right? It's like it's like that. Not allowing, and I need to describe this, and this is what we have to talk about right now. And again, we're gonna bring in, we got Pisces energy and Virgo energy. We're already, sorry, we're gonna start talking about this next moon. All right. You don't let perfect get in the way of done, right? You don't let perfect stand in the way of done. And why do we articulate that? Because when we think about the fact that we're continually working into the space of making, right? When we are perfect makers, you have to heal your relationship to perfect real quick, right? Because when it's like it's working into the context of understanding that we can energetically refine things ad infinitum, right? Like this is often the thing that we understand. The best that we do always feels like it pales in comparison to what we could do at this moment. But when we understand the nature of perfection being that way, right? Then we start to hold ourselves a little bit more gently. So I feel like that's a lot of the work that we see that's happening right now in relationality to working through this, right? And I like to describe this like this is how we get better at things, right? We start we start we start not holding our precious when we stop holding our perfect so preciously, but we still strive for it. It becomes a gift, right? Because it becomes an act of refinement. So, and I feel like there's a lot of that work that we see, and that's happening across all of the frequencies right now, right? Not getting hard on the self because one isn't perfect, but saying to oneself, how do I articulate, how do I do something in a way that even like, and I like to point this out when we're working through that, the only person, and this is how we heal the Aries energy, right? Aries, the Aries that moves into their path work. What go find an Aries, right? What were you doing earlier, Aries? I was competing with everybody. Go find the older Aries. Who do you compete with now, Aries? The person I was yesterday. Every day the Aries looks at themselves straight in the face and says, I can top that. Right? Bottom of the deck on this reading, Knight of Wands, right? How am I going to be a better me today than I was yesterday? Right? And when we recognize that, when we bring that energy into our relationships, then we find the capability to change, right? We find the space by which we don't have to beat ourselves up if we didn't do something effectively. But when we look at that, not in the space of worrying how others feel, but the fact that we're doing it for ourselves, right? We're answering the call to be that perfect. Then that is us finding our higher self, right? And it's a gentle journey. It doesn't mean you're going to do something insane today that sweeps everything away that you've ever done before, right? How can I do something gently? How can I love myself, but be myself better than I was yesterday? Right? It's a very gentle song. It's a very gentle song that brings profound change to us. And I feel like that's what we're seeing that's happening right now across all of the frequencies because it allows us to effectively be able to hold the past self gently while also making way for the person that we aspire to become. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and receiving it. Just a reminder if you want to book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you would like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I'll never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my site. So I encourage you to do it there. A couple of updates before we move into personal readings today. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who participated in our recent class on the court cards of the Sword Suite. Our next class is going to be held on Thursday, March 19th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be continuing our studies into the tarot with a focus on the the cup suite, the cup court cards. Say that 5 times fast. We're going to be studying the symbology of the cards, the history. We're going to be working through spread applications, how you can read those cards in any direction that they may appear in your own readings. I'm also going to be presenting you guys a unique spread to help you channel the messages of the cup suites into the suit, into your own reading. And all you need to do if you'd like to become part of that class program is head on over to my stack and become a paid subscriber. Your paid subscription to my stack is your ticket of entry into our live classes each and every month. As a paid subscriber, you will also have access to a paid monthly subscriber, have access to over 9 hours worth of material in the Tarot Church Library class archive. Now, it's not necessary to catch up. I'll be doing my best to give you an update on everything we have studied prior to that next class, but the material is there for you to receive as you're ready to receive it. You'll also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students to ask any questions that you may have in relation to anything we've learned and studied thus far. And if you become a founding member to my stack, not only will you receive a discount on the full year's worth of classes, but you'll also receive you also have access to over 20 hours worth of material in the Tarot Church Library class program, as well as a complimentary one-on-one mentorship class with me, where I will meet with you personally to assess where you are on your own personal tarot journey and give you the best insights in terms of how to utilize those classes to the best of your advantage, moving towards your tarot goals going forward. One of the things I tried to do in these classes was make them accessible to the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's definitely something there for everyone. Don't let your lack of experience or your robust experience prevent you from joining us in these classes. And even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my stack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay up to date on any new offerings or services. I also post my Mystic Meditation articles there, which will let you have insight in terms of everything we've been seeing energetically in the cards. I'll be writing one shortly on this next moon that we've got coming up. I also want to let you guys know that on top of my standard life path readings, I also offer mentorship classes. These are for any of my students seeking a more personalized educational experience from me. I take a very limited number of students for this reason, as those classes are focused on each individual's personal spiritual goals and journey work. Those classes can be purchased on an individual level or as a monthly class series, weekly or bi-weekly as your schedule permits. Also, for my students seeking more consistent weekly tarot support, I'm very happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. That is a package of 4 30-minute readings, again, weekly or bi-weekly as your schedule permits, so that you can stay more consistent on your personal journey. I'm also very happy to offer dream interpretation readings, which you can purchase per dream or as a series. If you purchase the series, I would encourage you to start to keep a dream journal, as we will meet weekly or bi-weekly with that journal and utilize the tarot to understand the key themes and messages coming towards you in the dream space. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today and sharing in these messages, and we will do this again tomorrow.